The cage unveiled. The arena was full of noise. Aliens of every shape and size filled the seats, shouting, laughing, throwing coins. Lights flashed across the metal walls. This was not a place of peace. This was a place of cruelty. At the center of the arena stood a large cage covered with a dirty black cloth. The crowd waited for the show to begin. Some whispered about what was inside. Others shouted for the curtain to be removed. In the waiting room below the arena, a human named Callan stood quietly. He wore simple clothes, his brown jacket dusty from travel. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He was not here for fun. A tall alien, dressed in fine robes, walked over to Callan with a smile. "You have traveled far, human," he said. "We promised you a reward, something entertaining." Callan nodded but said nothing. The alien waved his hand. "Bring it up." A group of guards pulled a lever. The cage above began to rise from the floor. The black cloth still covered it. The announcer's voice rang across the arena. "From the labs of Sector 9, a one-of-a-kind creation, broken, rare, and once alive with power, but now, yours to play with." The crowd roared. The cloth was pulled away. Gasps. Silence. Then more laughter. Inside the cage lay a girl. She looked young, maybe 18 or 19 in human years. Her skin was soft lavender, her hair silver and tangled. She wore a torn cloth dress. Her arms and legs were bruised. Chains held her wrists. Her eyes were open, but she didn't move. She looked like a doll someone had broken and thrown away. Callan stepped forward. "She is yours now," said the alien with a smile. "Do whatever you like. The crowd wants a show." But Callan didn't move toward the weapons or tools nearby. He walked straight to the cage. The girl didn't react. He crouched down. "Hey," he whispered softly. "Can you hear me?" No answer. But her eyes moved, just slightly. She blinked. The crowd shouted, "Hurt her! Wake her up!" Callan didn't listen. He looked closely at the girl's wounds, old and fresh. Her body was thin from hunger. Her left leg was swollen. Her lips were cracked. This wasn't entertainment. This was torture. "She needs help," Callan said aloud. The alien beside him laughed. "She needs nothing. She's trash. That's why we gave her to you." Callan stood up, his jaw tight. "You gave her to me. Then she's mine, right?" The alien blinked. "Yes, of course, yours." Without another word, Callan opened the cage door. The girl didn't fight. She didn't cry. She simply looked at him with tired, broken eyes. He took off his jacket and gently wrapped it around her shoulders. Then he lifted her into his arms. She was light, too light, like someone who hadn't eaten in weeks. "What are you doing?" the alien asked, confused. "I'm taking her with me." The crowd started to boo. "Where's the show? Hit her. Make her scream." Callan ignored them. He turned toward the exit. "You can't leave," shouted the announcer. "That's not how it works." Callan paused at the gate. Then, without turning back, he said, "She's not a toy, and I'm not your animal." Guards rushed to block his path. Callan glared at them. His voice was low, dangerous. "Do you want to try me?" The guards hesitated. One stepped forward, then saw something in Callan's eyes. Something cold, something that said, "I won't stop. Not today." They stepped aside. Callan carried the girl out of the arena, through the dark halls and into the quiet night air. His ship was waiting nearby. Inside the ship, he laid her gently on a bed. He checked her pulse. Still weak, but alive. He sat beside her, holding her hand. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I don't know who you are, I don't know what they did to you, but I'm going to help you, I promise." She didn't speak, but this time, she didn't look away. The girl did not move for the first 2 days. Callan had placed her in the softest bed he had, wrapped her in a warm blanket and turned the heat up in the ship's cabin. He gave her water through a straw, spoon-fed her small sips of broth, and changed her bandages. Still, she said nothing, not a single word. She only stared, at the ceiling, at her own hands, sometimes at him. but never for long. Her eyes were strange. Not just the violet color, but the way they looked. Hollow, as if her spirit was far away, still trapped in that cage. Callan didn't ask questions. He only spoke when needed. "You're safe here. I'm going to clean your wounds now. I made soup again. Hope that's okay." She didn't reply, but sometimes her eyes blinked once. Maybe that was a yes. On the third day, Callan noticed something different. He entered the room quietly, carrying a small piece of fruit. The girl was sitting up, not fully, but slightly propped on one elbow. She had pulled the blanket up to her neck and was staring out the ship's side window. The stars drifted by slowly. He smiled gently. "You're awake." She didn't move. He sat down beside her, placed the fruit on the small table, and waited. Minutes passed. "Do you have a name?" he asked softly. No answer. Callan sighed. "All right. I guess I'll give you one. Just until you feel like talking." He looked at her carefully. She was still thin and bruised, but her face was different now. Less empty. There was a spark hiding deep inside. A flicker. "How about Lyra?" She didn't react, but she didn't reject it either, so from that moment he called her Lyra. The days went by slowly. Lyra started to sit up more often. She drank on her own now, though still with shaky hands. Her wounds were healing, but the bruises ran deep, not just on her skin, but in her mind. One night, Callan walked into the room and found her curled into the corner of the bed. Her body was shaking. She wasn't cold. She was scared. He took a step forward and she flinched, hard. She pressed her body to the wall like a cornered animal. Callan stopped. He didn't move closer. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, his voice soft like a whisper. Her lips moved slightly, but no sound came. He sat down on the floor, not too close. "They hurt you. A lot. I can see it. But I'm not like them." She stared at him, eyes wide, breathing fast. Then suddenly she raised her arm and pointed to the scar on her left wrist. It was deep, old, and shaped like a mark, not a wound from injury, but a symbol burned into her. Callan narrowed his eyes. He moved closer, slowly. "Can I see?" She didn't pull away. He looked at the scar. It was a code. Faded letters and numbers. Alien script and something else mixed in. Genetic tags. Lab ID numbers. "Who did this to you?" he asked. Still, she said nothing, but she pointed again, not to the scar, to her chest, and then she tapped her mouth twice. He understood. They did something to her voice. "They silenced you," he whispered. "They made you quiet on purpose." Her hand lowered. Her head dropped. Callan stood up slowly and went to the other room. When he returned, he brought a small data pad and handed it to her. "You can type, if you want." Lyra looked at it, confused. He gently showed her how. Tap, swipe, letters appear. He set it in her lap and left her alone. A few minutes later, she followed him to the main deck. She didn't say anything, just stood there. Then she held the pad out. On the screen was one word. "Why?" Callan read it, looked up at her. "Why what?" she typed again. This time slower. "Why did you help me?" He gave her a long, quiet look. "Because," he said softly. "Someone should have. And no one else did." Lyra looked down. Her hands were shaking again. But then, for the first time since he had rescued her, something changed. Her lips moved. And though her voice was broken, barely a whisper, she said just one word. "Callan." His name. Not much, but enough. She was trying. Lyra still barely spoke, but she was no longer a ghost. She walked slowly now, barefoot across the smooth metal floor of Callan's ship. She didn't flinch at every noise anymore. She didn't hide in corners, but she also didn't smile. Callan noticed this most. Not her silence, not the scars, not the way she still avoided mirrors, but the fact that joy, true, simple joy, never touched her face. He didn't say it out loud, but deep in his heart, he made a promise. I will make her smile, even if it takes forever. One morning, Callan made breakfast like usual, sliced fruit, eggs, and toast from Earth rations. He called her to the kitchen, and she came quietly, her silver hair still messy from sleep. She sat down, and he poured her tea. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to, but then something odd happened. As Callan opened a container, a tiny bug leapt out and landed on his shirt. It was round, purple, and buzzing loudly. Callan yelped and jumped back, dropping his spoon. Ah, what the... He flailed his arms, trying to swat it off. The bug spun in circles, then flew into his hair. Callan turned around in panic, smacking at his head. Lyra, get it off, get it off. She just stared. Then, a strange sound came from her. A soft, breathy, huh, a tiny laugh. Callan froze. He looked at her. Her hands were covering her mouth, but not to hide fear, to hide a smile. Her eyes were lit up, her cheeks slightly lifted. She was laughing, not loud, not long, but real. Callan blinked in surprise, and then he laughed too. A loud, relieved, happy sound. He fell into the chair, grinning. All it took was a space bug to break the silence, huh? Lyra smiled again. This time she didn't hide it. For a moment the shadows disappeared. Later that day she helped him clean the ship's lounge. She dusted slowly, still weak, but trying. She didn't want to sit idle anymore. While cleaning, she pointed to a picture frame on the wall. Inside was an old photo of Callan with two older people. She typed on her pad, "Family." He nodded. "My parents. They passed away years ago." Lyra looked at the photo for a long time, then typed, "You were smiling." Callan paused. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I used to smile a lot more." She pointed to the frame again. "Do you miss them?" He sat beside her. "Every day." For a while, neither spoke. Then she typed something that surprised him. "I don't remember mine." He looked at her. "My memory. Broken." She whispered slowly. "You don't remember anything?" He asked gently. "Only pain, and numbers, and cold walls." Callan clenched his fists. Whoever had done this to her, they didn't just hurt her body, they erased her past. He took a deep breath. "Then maybe we start over, make new memories." She looked at him with curiosity. "You pick one moment each day," he continued. "One good thing. We write it down, like a memory book." Lyra thought for a second, then nodded. She tapped on her datapad again. "Today. First smile." That night, Callan gave her a small notebook and a pen. "No tech this time," he said with a smile. "This one's old-fashioned." She carefully wrote in it, slow and unsure. Her handwriting was shaky. Day 1. I smiled. He laughed. Bug was funny. She looked at what she wrote. And for the third time that day, she smiled. She handed it back to him. Callan read it with a soft laugh. "It's perfect." Lyra stared at him for a second, then wrote one more line beneath it. "Maybe tomorrow I remember something more." Callan didn't speak. He just nodded, and silently, he added one line to his own memory. Day 1. Lyra smiled. For real. It was the quiet that warned Callan first. His ship, the HFY, Emberwake, always made soft humming sounds while flying. But tonight it was too quiet. No engine hum, no star wind echo, just silence. Too perfect, too still. Callan sat at the control panel, eyes scanning the stars. Lyra was asleep in the back room, curled in her blankets, her notebook still in her hands. She had written a second memory that night. Day 2, I helped cook. I burned the toast. He laughed again. I like that. Callan smiled at the memory, but it vanished the moment the screen blinked red, proximity, alert. He tapped the screen. Nothing. Showed. Then a second alert triggered. Cloaked vessel nearby. No ID. His jaw tightened. They found us. He ran to Lyra's room. She opened her eyes as soon as he stepped in, her instincts still sharp from a lifetime of fear. Stay behind. Me, he whispered. She nodded. A sudden thud echoed through the ship. Then another. Boots. Heavy metal boots on the hull. They were boarding. Callan grabbed his blaster and motioned Lyra to hide inside the hidden panel under the bed, the same one he used to smuggle her out of the arena. She hesitated. Now, he said firmly, don't come out no matter what. The panel closed, and the room fell still. The main door exploded inward with a blast of white light. 3 armored aliens stepped inside, their armor black and covered in red war symbols. Each carried plasma rifles. The leader's helmet had glowing eyes. Where is the subject? He barked in a deep, static-filled voice. Callan raised his blaster. You're not taking her. You are a human smuggler, a traitor, the leader growled. Subject 31 belongs to the Ascended Empire. She belongs to no one, Callan replied coldly. The leader stepped forward. Stand aside. You cannot protect her. Callan shot first. The blaster beam hit one guard in the chest. He fell back with a scream. Then chaos broke loose. They fired. Callan ducked behind a metal table, returning shots quickly. Sparks flew. Walls cracked. Fire lit up the hallway. One alien threw a flash grenade. Callan turned too late. Boom! Light. Ringing ears. Blurry vision. He stumbled, coughing, crawling toward the hallway. Blood ran from a cut above his eye. His blaster was gone. The leader approached, towering over him. Such a waste of effort for one broken thing, he snarled, raising his weapon. Suddenly, crack! The leader stumbled back. Lyra stood behind him holding a metal rod. Her hands trembled. Her chest rose and fell fast, but her eyes were clear. Stay away from him, she said. It was the loudest she'd ever spoken. The alien turned, furious. You... Callan swept the rod from the floor and slammed it into the alien's leg. He fell. Then Lyra kicked the rifle away. Together they ran toward the emergency pod. Sirens howled through the ship. Inside the escape pod, Callan quickly locked the hatch and launched them into space. The stars blurred past as the pod shot into the black. Callan sat back, breathing hard. Blood ran down his arm. His side burned. Lyra leaned over him. Her hands were cold but gentle. She whispered, "You're hurt." He nodded weakly. "Better me than you?" She looked into his eyes. "I broke the rule," she said softly. "What rule?" "I came out. You said not to." He smiled through the pain. "Thank you for breaking it." She leaned her head against his shoulder. For the first time, she didn't seem scared, and for the first time, she was the one protecting him. Back in the ruined ship, the leader crawled to the control panel, coughing. He activated his comm link. "We failed. The subject escaped with the human." A crackled voice replied, "Trace their path, they won't run far, and this time, bring the extraction unit." The escape pod drifted through cold space for hours. No lights, no sound. Just darkness and the quiet thump of Callan's heartbeat echoing in his ears. He lay slumped against the wall, wrapped in a thermal blanket. His shoulder wound had stopped bleeding, but the pain was sharp. Every movement hurt. Lyra sat across from him, holding a glow stick in one hand and her notebook in the other. Her face was quiet. Too quiet. Something in her eyes had changed. She hadn't written anything new since the fight. No day 3, no smile, just silence. "Hey," Callan whispered, trying not to groan. "Not to? You okay?" Lyra didn't answer. Instead, she looked at him and slowly asked, "Do you really want to know what I remember?" He blinked. "Only if you want to tell me." She looked away. "I need to," I want someone to know. She opened the notebook, but this time she didn't write. She spoke, her voice was soft and broken, but steady. I was born on a colony, she said. I don't know the name, green sky, tall trees. My mother had violet skin like me. My father was human. Callan's eyes widened. A human? He asked. She nodded slowly. That's why they took me. Her hand clenched the notebook. Mixed blood, rare genetics, high potential. Their machines tested my cells. Found power. What kind of power? They didn't say, just numbers, charts. They gave me injections, burned my skin, put wires in my spine. She pulled her collar down. Callan saw metal ports on her, neck, scars, surgical cuts. They said I wasn't strong enough, not like the others. But they didn't throw me away. They wanted to test how much pain I could take. Colin felt sick. How long? I don't know. Years, maybe. They called me Subject 31. The ones before me. They died. Her voice cracked. I remember one girl, number 29. She used to hum songs at night. She disappeared after one of the stress tests. They told me to forget her. She looked up. But I still remember her song. Every note. A tear slid down her cheek. Callan wanted to hold her, but he stayed still. Let her speak. They never said my real name again, just numbers, just files. And when I started screaming in dreams, they said I was broken. She pulled something from her pocket, a small metal tag, rusted, burnt on the edges. It read, Property of Ascended Genetics, Subject 31. They were going to scrap me, sell me off, for entertainment. Or worse, Callan's jaw tightened, his fist clenched. You're not property, you're not a number. Lyra looked at him, eyes shining with tears. But I don't even remember who I was before the lab. I don't know my real name. He reached out and gently took her hand. Then we find it. Or we choose a new one together. She held his gaze. Then said softly, Lyra, I want to keep that name, the one you gave me. Callan smiled. Then it's yours. Later, as the pod floated past a dead moon, Callan tapped a message into his ship's distress beacon. Need pickup. Injured. Not safe. Priority. Civilian rescue. They had to move fast. The mercs were tracking them. Lyra sat quietly, flipping through her notebook. She stopped on a blank page. Then slowly, she wrote, Day 3. I told the truth, and he didn't turn away. She looked up. I'm scared they'll take me again, she said. Callan nodded. Then I guess I'll just have to keep fighting. Lyra paused. What if they catch you? Because of me? Callan chuckled lightly, even in pain. Too late for regrets now. She lowered her head. You could have sold me. Left me. He stared at her. You're not a thing to sell, he said. You're someone I care about. I don't care what they did to you. You're not broken. You're not less. Lyra breathed deeply. Her fingers brushed her own cheek, almost as if she was checking if she was real. Thank you, Callan. And, for the first time, her voice didn't shake, but far away in the core of the Ascended Empire, a screen lit up. A scientist in a silver lab coat stared at the image of Lyra's face. He tapped the glass. She survived? A commander nodded. Yes, and she's showing stable emotional bonds. The scientist smiled. Good, then the experiment is still alive. Should we capture her? No, he said coldly. Let them run a little longer. He turned off the screen. I want to see what happens when the broken one begins to heal. The rescue ship arrived 12 hours later, a small, worn-out freighter with faded markings. Not military, not official, but safe, for now. An old woman greeted them on board. Her name was Maiza, a former rebel medic who owed Callan a favor from long ago. She took one look at his bleeding arm and said, You're lucky I still answer your messages. Callan chuckled weakly. You always did love drama. While Misa patched him up, Lyra sat quietly in the corner of the infirmary. She was watching the stars pass outside the window, but her thoughts were elsewhere. They had escaped death again. But Lyra knew something was coming. She could feel it in her bones. Later, Maeza sat with her, gently checking the healing ports on her neck. You, poor girl, she muttered. They marked you bad. Lyra's voice was soft. They'll come again, won't they? Maeza didn't lie. Yes, they always do. You escaped their cage, that makes them angry. Callan limped in, shoulders stiff. Let them come, he said. We'll keep running. But Lyra turned toward him slowly. How long can we run? Callan blinked. As long as it takes. What if I'm done running? They spent the night on the freighter in silence. Callan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Lyra's words echoed in his mind. I'm done running. Could she really fight back? Was she strong enough? He remembered the fear in her eyes. The way she flinched at loud sounds. The way she whispered instead of speaking. She had come so far, but she was still healing, still recovering. And yet, maybe she was right. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. The next day, Maeza brought bad news. Intercepted a comm line, she said. They've sent an extraction unit, full elite team, biotrackers, cyberhounds. They're not coming to capture her this time. Callan narrowed his eyes. They're coming to erase her. Maeza nodded. And anyone helping her. Callan looked at Lyra. She was standing near the ship's exit, staring out at the barren moon below. He walked over and stood beside her. They know where we are, he said. She didn't flinch. Then let's make them remember who I am. Callan stared at her. Her eyes were steady now. No shaking hands. No fear, only fire. Maeza gave them a choice. I can get you both out. I have a smuggler route. It's dangerous, but it can take you far. Deep into the silent sectors. Callan looked at Lyra. Lyra looked at her hands. Then at Callan. No, she said. They made me a ghost. I won't live like one. What are you saying? Callan asked. She turned to him. I want to go back. Not to the lab, but to the world. To speak. To show them what they did. If I keep running, they win. Maeza was silent for a long time. Then she sighed. Brave and foolish. Callan smiled faintly. Then I guess I'm foolish too. They sent a message. This time not a distress signal, but a declaration. Callan activated a galactic public beacon, a rare signal that streamed across news networks, outlaw channels, and backdoor comm lines. Lyra stood in front of the camera. She wore simple clothes. Her hair was tied back, her scars visible. She stared at the lens for a long time. Then she spoke. My name was Subject. 31. They erased my name, my past, my memories. They treated me like data, like a failed test, but I survived. She raised her hand, showing the tag they burned into her skin. They wanted me silent. They wanted me gone. But I'm still here. And I am not alone. She stepped back. Callan stood beside her. We're not asking for help, he said. We're showing you the truth. You choose what to do with it. Then the screen went dark. The message was sent. Now, all they could do was wait. Would the galaxy hear them? Would anyone care? Or would the hunters arrive first? Far away. Deep. In the black heart of ascended space, the message reached cold hands. The lead scientist watched the broadcast, his face blank. He turned to his commander. Send the unit. Bring me her body. The commander hesitated. What if the people start asking questions? They won't, the scientist said. They never care until it's too late. He smiled. She thinks she's free. But even now, the real test begins. On a quiet freighter above a dead moon, Lyra sat alone in the dark, reading her notebook. Day 4. I chose to fight. Not because I want war, but because I want to live. She held the pen tightly, and under that she wrote, Day, Thor's tomorrow. I stop running. Forever. The message spread like fire. From dirty spaceports to noble palaces, the image of a broken girl standing strong beside a human man played on every unauthorized screen. Lyra's voice, soft but steady, echoed through smugglers' dens, underground clinics, rebel hideouts, and even a few military barracks. Some ignored it, some laughed. But others listened, and for the first time in decades, someone whispered words that once felt forgotten. They're lying to us. Back on Mesa's freighter, things were no longer quiet. Lyra sat in the cockpit, dressed in light armor now, not to fight but to stand, to be seen. Her notebook lay beside her, open to a blank page. Callan stood at the ship's weapons panel, tightening the last bolts on a makeshift turret. I hope this thing works, he muttered. Mesa smirked from the pilot's seat. Hope doesn't keep you alive, boy. But attitude helps. Lyra didn't smile this time. Instead, she said, They're almost here. And she was right. The sky cracked open, a ripple in space. Then a black ship arrived. Massive, sharp, and full of death. No markings, no lights, just shadows. Mesa cursed. Extraction unit, high grade. This isn't just a squad. It's a full sweep. Callan grabbed his blaster. Time to give them a welcome. Lyra stood slowly. No, let me speak first. As the enemy ship landed, its doors opened like the jaws of a beast. 30 armored soldiers marched out. In the center was a tall figure in a silver cloak, the scientist. He walked calmly, hands behind his back, as if this were a meeting, not a hunt. His voice boomed from a small floating mic beside him. Subject 31. We gave you life. We gave you strength. You do not belong to the stars. You belong to us. Lyra stepped forward. No, she said. You gave me pain. You gave me chains. But I took my freedom. He chuckled. You are a mistake. A failed project. Callan stepped beside her. Then I guess this mistake's got backup. The scientist waved his hand. End this. The soldiers moved fast, blasters up, formation tight. Callan and Mesa opened fire. The first line of attackers fell, then smoke bombs hit. Lyra was pulled back by Callan as energy bolts flew overhead. But she didn't hide. She ran to the top of the freighter ramp and activated the ship's comm beacon. People of the free systems. Her voice cried out, broadcasting live. If you're hearing this, I am not asking for rescue. I am showing you their truth. Behind her, blaster fire lit the sky. Mesa screamed. We're losing ground. Lyra kept speaking. They treat us like data, like weapons. But we are people, and we will not vanish quietly. Suddenly, a flash of light struck the beacon. Exploding, it in flames. Lyra was thrown backward. Callan ran to her side, shielding her from falling debris. You okay? He asked, coughing. She opened her eyes. Still here. They looked around. Half of Mesa's freighter was in ruins. The enemy was advancing, too many, too fast. And then, a ripple. Another ship arrived. Not black, not silent, but loud, bright. It was a pirate vessel, rusted, ugly, and beautiful. From the speakers came a growling voice. We saw your little message, girl. Figured you'd need a hand. Then another ship arrived, and another. Rebel crafts, smuggler scouts, even a few stolen government drones, people from all corners of the galaxy. They had seen the truth, and they came. Chaos exploded. The sky turned to fire as ships battled above the moon. Blaster fire painted the rocks below. The ascended soldiers began to fall back. Callan charged with a stolen rifle. Lyra moved behind cover, helping wounded rebels. Her hands shook, but she didn't stop. Suddenly, she saw him, the scientist. He was trying to escape back to his ship. She chased him through smoke, through screams, through blood. She tackled him near the ramp. He hit the ground hard, His cloak burned on one side. "You don't understand," he gasped. "You were never meant to live." Lyra stood over him, her face calm. "That's why I did. She didn't kill him, she didn't need to, because the cameras were still rolling, and the whole galaxy had seen. The battle ended, not cleanly, not without loss, but it ended. The ascended ship was captured. The scientist and his soldiers were taken by rebel courts, and Lyra, once Subject 31, was no longer a ghost. Weeks later, on a peaceful station orbiting a quiet world, Lyra stood on a small stage. Civilians, aliens, humans all sat in silence. She read from her notebook, Day 7. "We fought back, not for revenge, but for our names, for our voices, for the ones who never got the chance." She closed the book, and the room stood and clapped. Callan waited off stage, leaning against a wall. Lyra walked over. "You think they really heard me?" she asked. He smiled. "They did." She looked into his eyes. "I wouldn't have made it without you." He chuckled. "I wouldn't have made it without you kicking that merc in the leg back on my ship." She laughed, a real full laugh. Then she leaned closer. "I remembered something." Callan raised an eyebrow. "Oh? My real name?" He stared. "What is it?" She whispered it. He smiled, but he never told anyone, because it was hers now, just like her freedom. And as the stars turned slowly outside the station, a message replayed across galaxies. Her voice, her story, a tale of one broken girl, and the man who defied an empire just to help her heal.